Welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday, everyone. We got an exciting session today. We're going to be talking through building a competitor research with Claude Code. This agent is something that runs fully autonomously and helps you stay competitive and if not get, more competitive against your competitors. It's always nice to see familiar faces. If it's your first time joining. I like to be very interactive. So please ask questions. Please use the chat. I'm constantly answering questions. We do record the full session and it will be available to you after. We will send it after the fact via email, as well as all the session files that we put together live today. So really should be all encompassing for you to build the system yourself. We really like to create something that is usable from day one. And so want to make sure that we are, making it valuable for you. So I think we can get going here. So the idea today is AI can be a really strong reasoning layer that sits on top of your own data. And it's great at bulk reading a bunch of pages and understanding what is going on, but it's not great at recalling specific things. And so the one thing that we're going to talk about today is building an agent that acts as your, competitor researcher and goes and automatically builds this information to understand how you can differentiate and find opportunities proactively that, help you stay competitive against your incumbents. And so the way that we're thinking about this is we want to build an agent that goes out every week and goes to your competitors' websites, looks at things like pricing, messaging, docs, integrations, compliance, hiring, customer wins, weaknesses, and uses that to feed context to the agent. So those are the inputs. So we're going to be giving it the sources to go search. We're going to tell it which signals we want to keep an eye on. Then the agent will read those pages and make sure to always cite its source, extract and cite every line, constrain it to the fetch pages so it doesn't go rogue and, either burn credits or kind of lose the objective here. And then also build a, memory. So we want this to get better every time. And so we want to compare to how things looked last time. And then what we'll do is it'll give me a competitive brief. This brief will appear in my inbox, whether that's Slack or email each week. It tells me and makes recommendations on signals that changed, what I should do about it. If there's anything unverified or needs human approval, it will, nudge me on that and be delivered every morning or, we can do this every week. So the objective of today is to go through this and make sure that we, have this up and running as a skill or as a recurring task on our Claude board. Now, let's jump into Claude Code. Also, if this is your first session, my name's Will. I run Catalyst, which is a go-to-marketing agency. We help growth stage companies grow faster using AI and different tools, different workflows. It's always important to be monitoring what competitors are doing just so you can stay aggressive with things like pricing and feature parity. And these sessions are really meant to break down one specific work stream, but then also to show you larger picture how all of these agents can work together. Claude Code is our preferred LLM of choice, and we build everything in there. It's also a great operating system. We run our entire agency out of Claude Code in a GitHub repo, and it has allowed us to work with 150 different B2B businesses over the last couple of years. We've worked with companies of all stages and have seen a lot of different problems. And what we do is we distill all of those learnings and teach them here. So I'm going to pull up Claude Code and we can jump right into the building session. If you come over here to Claude, you will probably see this panel. Go to home and make sure you switch over to the cowork section. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you're working out of a specific file or a specific folder. And so you can see I'm coming here and I've connected to my folder, which we're building this competitor research agent right here. And this allows us to keep our files contained. This is the same file that you or the folder that you guys will get after this session for you to build it yourself. But we are now working out of this folder. And so everything is contained there. It's not going to go rogue and start building other things. And so when we start building any type of agent, we want to first give it, the context of what we're trying to build. And so it has guided instructions and then give it access to the additional components of things that it needs. You can see we've come here and already given it access to our connectors. This is what allows us to connect to our other tools and pull data from other platforms. So now that we're in this session, I want to start working on first the source map. So pull up the sources markdown file and let's in this project. It's going to pull our sources and you can see kind of how we're outlining what we are trying to do. If anyone has if anyone works at a specific company and wants to give us your URL and we can build the demo around you specifically. If not, I can just use a placeholder. But we're going to be going through this build live. And so it might be valuable to you because I can just send you all the learnings and the skill already pre-built for you. So it's kind of a free working session. But this is the first thing that we want to tackle. And this sources file, you can see is we're giving it instructions of what to go look for, right? What are the sources that we want it to go and research every time it runs this skill? So pricing, product or docs or change logs, careers, G2 profiles, Reddit threads or subreddits, additional types, and then notes about it. It looks like we have a suggestion here. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is great. Law firm, growth marketing. Cool. Chrissy, before we dive into this, just curious, are there other competitors in your space that you know? I just want to make sure that we can provide all these contexts. Cool. Okay. So let's build it for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, great, we work at and want to set up this system for monitor. And so essentially the steps that we're going to go through is we're going to point to its real sources. So I've given it just the domain of our example website here. It's going to go search the web and go and find all of these things. So it's going to go find competitors, their pricing, their product, resources. It's going to then build the intelligence layer. Then it's going to, go and attempt to run it. And then we're going to give it feedback and then we're going to put it on a loop. So which competitors should I set up tracking for? Pick a category that matters. I will let you decide, Christy. I'm going to say probably law firm marketing agencies and coaches and consultants. Cool. Let's do both of those. And then we want this to be a recurring loop. And then it's going to start going. And so because we have some of these documents already pre-created, again, you'll get access to these. It knows that what we're trying to accomplish here, which is building this continuous agent. Setting it on a loop is the real unlock here. No longer are we going to Claude and just doing, writing a prompt to get a one-time response. We now want to start building systems that happen automatically and that, keep giving us information and then start taking action on our behalf. That's what makes it truly autonomous and, this idea of agentic work. 5 to start, focusing on great, found these other ones. These are agencies, not SaaS. So G2 is great for software, right? It's a place where people can peer review software. Because this is a service business, it's just going to skip over G2, which is fine. It's going to look at Clutch and other sources there. But essentially, it's going and it's looking at all of these companies now to go find all this data to add to this sources file. And so, what we're doing is we're pretty much doing this search once and putting it all into a markdown file. So then every time it runs this skill in the future, it doesn't have to do this step again. It already knows where to go and actually look to find this information. Let this keep running. This is something that, we install for a lot of our clients. It's really helpful, especially for software companies, to know how other people are evolving things like their positioning and pricing to either make sure that you're staying competitive, but then also that, if they figured out something about user behavior, user research, we can learn from that. A founder I know actually lost 3 deals in 1 week because, they finally asked, kind of what was making people go with their competitor. And they had missed that their competitor had dropped their prices by 30%. And this is something that we're going to see more and more over, the next few years, especially in the software space, because, teams are able to drop their software costs much lower now that we have AI. And so missing out on those key details can really cause you a lot, especially if you're not staying, up to date with that. And that data, all that information is public. A lot of software companies, that will publish their pricing, especially if they're doing a PLG focus. And so, staying up to date to that is really important, and it just minimizes, that hour or two that you would take to do that research each week. And so that way we can stay proactive with this. We can have this constantly monitoring and signal to us and flag to us in Slack if something changes. So it only grabs our attention when it's actually needed. I think the mental model is right. This is by giving it these specific sources to look at, we're kind of containing it and we're guiding it to believe or to understand only what's important and what's necessary. If we just went into, Claude or ChatGPT and was like, "Hey, like, let me know, competitive analysis on these companies," we're not really giving it the framing of what we're actually trying to accomplish. And so everything after this kind of working session is, has programmed reasoning and direction, and which always gives us higher quality, more consistent outputs on the end. So it's going through and it's creating the created source file. Let's see. Let me pull this up. Hold on. Before we jump into the output, so you can see it's creating a source file for each of the companies that it will update week over week. And it found no public pricing. It found their positioning. It found their careers, who is hiring, their reviews on Glassdoor, their funnel entry, the blog, podcast, events, testimonials, anything kind of else, and then notes. And you can see it created this for, what's the template? You can see it created this for all of the companies that we listed. Then what it's doing is it's pulling all of that information, and this is what it will build on over time. And this is the kind of template of the competitive brief of how it will run. So we have an output here. It looks like we have a question from Heather about markdown files. Yeah, markdown files are becoming the preferred type of file for skills. Claude, markdown is nothing new. It's been something that's been around for a while. What is really great is it's very legible by AI because it has structure, but it's also very legible to humans, which makes it very easy to work with. And so it's become this kind of preferred method, and you can hyperlink in here as well. It does help save tokens. So the way that Claude knows how to work with markdown files is it will actually read just the beginning of it first. So it doesn't load the whole page. It just reads the beginning to understand context. And then that's what the start file does as well. So the start file gives it instructions of what exists in that file structure. So now this competitive brief is set up to say, this is what it is, this is who we're looking at, and then structuring it by each competitor that we have. So, Scorpion, what their positioning and their product claims are, their quoted lines and the source, signals that move this week. Looks like they, led with integrations partnerships. Looks like they have a promotion running, and then customer wins. Here we have a pricing tier for different services, their positioning, their event value props that they're running. And you can see it comes down here and pulls all of this information for you. And maybe this first one isn't the most innovative. Maybe this is something that you already know, but where this really starts to pick up and build and compound over time is having it run automatically for you. This is one thing that you never have to do again once you set up correct. What this means for SMB teams, everyone is now selling AI visibility, GEO, on revenue, not leads. That's great. AI visibility playbook or on trend, not ahead of it. Two agencies grow law and rankings, attack contracts, lock in directly. Chris is the only one true only analog for coaching. Pricing transparency as a wedge. The things that it wasn't really sure about, right? So that if it's confused by anything or it doesn't have the full context, it'll ask you that. And as you can see, it understood that we wanted to do this on a loop or a scheduled task. So it's already come in here and suggested creating a scheduled task for competitor research loop. And you can see the details that's created. So what I'm going to do is come here and click schedule. And then every week at 8:30 on Monday, this will be created and be sent to me. So what it's going to do, oh, hold on. We have some flags. Recurring complaints, perfect. So it's going to go and pull data from Clutch, Glassdoor, and Trustpilot. Then it's noting that only one company has public pricing. Hit run now on a scheduled task to pre-approve and fetch permissions. Sweet. Okay, so this is running. What I'm going to do is now say, actually, if you come here to your scheduled tasks, it will be here. And I'm actually going to run it now so we can troubleshoot this live. It will show up here. I think it's interesting that it calls out that a lot of these competitors are moving towards AI search and AI visibility. We are quickly seeing this becoming one of the largest channels for growth of companies of all sizes. It is truly, it's very rare that you can catch a channel and this early of infancy. This is something that we've been working with a lot on our clients as well. And understanding how AI is talking about your business is very important. Because if you don't know how it's talking about your business, you don't really know how to change it. And so what we've done is we've gone ahead and created a specialized tool that if you put in information about your business, it will actually go and run a complete audit on how your website's set up, the technical, how your content is performing, what AI thinks about you, how visible you are, and then more importantly, specific steps on how to solve that. And so the idea is that we give you, the whole thing away for free. It allows you to go and fix those for yourself so you can rank better on AI, get more website traffic to your company, and get more inbound leads. You can run the audit for yourself here. If you click that link below and just put in your company and URL, you'll be able to get access to the full breakdown and your 90-day plan specifically. Now this is running, we're going to have to give it some permission access. So coming here and we have to give it some access to a tool called Exa, which helps us scrape the web better. And you can see with Claude Cowork, what I like about it is it gives you a action plan and it tells you where you are in that process. So it's going to fetch the sources of the companies, and then it's going to write the change only brief. If there's anything specific that you want to keep monitoring, I think reviews are a great thing to monitor. It can help you not only with your, differentiations, your pitch, but also your product roadmap if you're a software. Understanding what's not working for other people and then positioning yourself as the solution there. is a great solution or a great strategy. So it's running this search, but as it's running, I'm going to look and say, okay, are there anything that I can give it feedback on so I can improve it over time? My recommendation with building any types of these agents or loops is actually going through and giving it all the context first, letting it run once, and then continuously improve it. So once this runs, I can give it feedback and just tell it to make changes. So the next run, it implements those changes. And it's like the perfect employee who, always takes your feedback immediately. And so you can constantly improve these and iterate on them over time. As we're waiting for this to load, oh, it does look like there's some questions. Hold on. Let me jump in and try to answer some of these. Okay. So it looks like we have a couple questions. One is, do you have to have your computer on in order for this schedule to run? That's a great question. And short answer is no. If you build a scheduled task here, you can have it run from it runs from a repository or a server online. It's the same way that dispatch works. It kind of creates this virtual machine and then it runs from it. So you have an option to either run it from your local machine or have it run from the online server, which allows these types of things to run even if your computer is not open. So this is again back to how do we get this to be agentic and actually build a team that works for you. I've been crafting an agent to run on schedule, manually doing it a few times to check accuracy or in content so I don't goof the prompt. Is it better to craft like you and fix after schedule starts running, even for new routines? Yeah, that's my preferred way of working. Again, it kind of depends. What I will do is I will go to a session. I will go to a session and uh, run the I will run the workflow completely or build it out until I get it to a place that I like and then commit it to be a scheduled task. So I kind of trouble it sounds like the same way that you've been approaching it. I will run through and build it, give it feedback, add that nuance, and then once it is to a place that's good enough, I will schedule it to go live. I find this is better because then I can just give it feedback as it's working and as it's running in the future. And it just continuously gets better. Again, I think of all of these agents as employees. Day one, I don't expect them to be 100%. I expect that, they get far enough along. They're competent, they get an output done, but then we give feedback over time and they improve. And this works for a whole bunch of different things, right? The idea here is we have given it a bunch of things to go look at on a schedule. So right now it's looking at 5 different websites and looking at each page. This could be, the same principles apply to other workflows of something where you doing research or if there's something you have to go look at every week that takes a considerable amount of time, you can build this into an agent that just sends you a dossier. It sends you, a report once a week and gives you the high level the same way that you would get like a status report from an employee or something like that. It sounds like we have some people in the audience who've spent some time building custom workflows or custom agents. Are there agents you guys have built that have been successful for you? Or, more importantly, have there been any agents you've tried to build that haven't worked that we can maybe troubleshoot live? Maybe one. Looks like we have a question about pricing. You should be able to do this with Claude's most basic plan, which I need to double check what Claude Cowork starts at, honestly. Yeah, Claude Cowork is available at $20 a month. Highly recommend that. Market trends through the also want to make more extensive boundary lists for me. That's been a challenge. I was doing market trends through it. Also wanted a more expensive boundary list from me. Heather, can you say more about that? What do you mean by more extensive boundary list? Okay, there we go. This is starting to run. So you can see it's running through and pulling all of these pages from Crisp, from ranking. I think one of the things that I would probably edit is we're not actually storing a lot of information on here. It looks like it's just pulling a specific quoted line or like what changed. I probably want more context saved from one report to the next. Less for me, more for it, so it knows actually what changed. This is a little bit again, the use case is a little bit different for a service offering versus a software where, the language is usually a little bit more concrete, where services are, the sales motion is they wanna get you on a call so they can understand about your business before they pitch you, where software will give a lot more information. I think one of the biggest unlocks here too is like searching through technical documentation. And so monitoring, a software company's docs to see how they're evolving as well. Okay, cool. So a focus list, such as if it was shoes, given criteria of what are interests and not interests, so narrowing scope. And I'm trying to develop that without doing a bunch of the work and saying, make this. Yeah, I mean, so what's nice is we can say, right, we had this basic, if we go back to our workflow about how we design this skill, this is how we told it to structure the brief. And so Heather, if we want it to be more specific of what we want it to report on, all we would need to do is change this competitive brief template and say, hey, we want it to only look at, you know, something very specific, the G2 reviews, how the messaging changed. Maybe we want to see, we only want to monitor product pages and how those evolved. So you can get as granular and specific with this as you want, and then that improves over time. And so once you set this once, the next time it just follows that same kind of format. It's really essentially an SOP, right? We're asking it to fill out this competitive brief. Good question. We have a question about integrating Perplexity, but I will take this as an opportunity to just talk about other models as a whole. So, would integrating Perplexity in this loop help? I'm assuming it will since we are scraping and analyzing web pages, but with a caveat of increased credit usage. Look, there is definitely a race of different LLMs. We're very Claude focused. I've seen some people in the comments that are very ChatGPT focused. Perplexity is another great one. Grok, if you're a big Twitter user. My recommendation is really just find an ecosystem and stick to it. I think that's easiest. This question in particular was talking about web scraping. Perplexity has better web scraping built into it, but at the same time, there are tools like Exa that allow you to scrape the web better than Perplexity does at a fraction of the cost. And so, less thinking about what tools you're using, but thinking about the outcomes you want. The biggest thing with agent building and any kind of building with AI right now is thinking in outcomes versus thinking in what action you're trying to create. Let me just pull this up again as an example. And so what we did is we said, hey, we're trying to get this. What we want is a report in our inbox every week that's tracking and monitoring our competitors. I'm not thinking about how it's scraping the web. I'm not thinking about how it's actually pulling it off. I'm talking about the outcome that I want. And so what we're doing is we're shifting our focus from tasks to outcomes, right? What is the end goal of the workflow that we're building? And then I'm relying on AI or Claude in particular to get me there. And if it has questions along the way, we can kind of troubleshoot. But Exa is, a great web scraper that helps you find structured data on the internet. Again, better than Perplexity. So I'm not really thinking of like, should I be using Claude or Perplexity? I use Claude, everything's in there. And instead of trying to switch different operating systems all the time, I'm staying loyal to one and just building my system to make it function for me. And you have the email give you an alert and the link project where the weekly report is now available. Yeah, so now that this is done, you can see the loop is complete and we have our competitive brief. So this actually ran a lot more information in here now, which is awesome. So the final thing I want to do, so we ran it, it completed, but it didn't notify me, which is kind of the key component of this. And so what I want to do is make an update to this skill or to this recurring task to send me a Slack notification to the artifact that holds this weekly report. So in this, I've actually told it to do two new things. It's going to integrate with Slack. So it pings me on Slack that it's done. And then I've actually asked it to host this information in a living artifact. Claude is very much prioritizing building artifacts, something that exists as a file that updates live, but then is also equally as shareable. And so it's going to do this, and then I will have a permanent link to an artifact that allows us to share it with other team members, and then also send me a Slack notification with that so I can have a file to check and I'm not going in and jumping into my folder system. And what's cool is behind the scenes, because we've connected this to a local folder on my computer, I can actually jump in here and show you what's happening. So these are the files that it's making. Here is the competitor, the sources, and it's actually built folders for all of the competitors I gave it, all of the prompts in here. And so this is now a really detailed file system of this whole skill and this project as a whole. And so it's a really, again, this is something that I'll share with you guys after. But because we've built it off of Claude Chat and we are using Claude Cowork, it's creating actual files that we have access to on our computer. So we can go back and edit them. And they also become more shareable. This is what people upload to GitHub and to share with other people to make it open source or just other members of your team. While I was on that other screen, it asked me a couple questions. It asked me if we wanted to make it a live artifact, which I said yes. And then I said I wanted to DM me on Slack. You can also send it to a specific channel, maybe like a marketing channel. Yeah, great question, Heather. So what it does is it saves each week's report and does not overwrite. This is done intentionally so it can look back to see, okay, part of the process is what's different today or what's different from last week to this week. And that's why there's a section in the competitive briefing. And so we can see that evolution. And then there's also a history of all of the audits to see how things are trending over a longer period of time as well. I think that's super important with any kind of data aggregation. Yeah, the live artifact, which I'll show you in a second here when I pull up, will just show the current version. But we can make it show things like trends, right? Like if pricing keeps changing, we can build that into a trend report. There are so many different ways to visualize information and convey information. But what's nice is because it's saving all of the information to these files each week in those folders I showed you, then we can start, getting creative with how we want that to be actually conveyed. So now we have this artifact, which means this is a URL that I can literally share. Sorry, I popped it out. I can literally share this. So let me pull this up. You guys can actually open this live. So I dropped this URL in the chat. And now this file updates automatically weekly. So to your question, Heather, it will always show the current version here. But then the local files are on my computer, which is where all the data is shared. I don't have Slack authorized currently on this machine, but if you did, you could have it connect directly to Slack and send you what I'll have it to do is probably highlight the three biggest changes for the week and then link to the artifact so I can always open the most current version. It looks like we have a question about a Reddit agent. Yeah, absolutely. What would you want to see in that Reddit agent session in particular? So the question is, can we do a Reddit agent setup in any of the upcoming sessions? That would be a goldmine for understanding your buyer's language and pain points and would create targeted content and messaging. Great piece of feedback. I think that can be a session in the next coming weeks. And so what we'll do is we'll create a report similar to this that will go and scrape Reddit, maybe even some reviews, and give us some understanding of voice of customer and what their pain points are. That can feed into our content signal system. If you guys haven't seen my content workflow, we'll preview it here. We've covered it on a few sessions in the past, but I highly recommend you guys taking a look at it. We have all of these sources that feed into our content engine: sales calls, workshops, LinkedIn creators, YouTube videos, industry news, and past performance of content. And what we're suggesting adding here is a Reddit voice of customer, and we'll add that as a new source to feed into our content production workflow. So I love that idea. Thank you so much for that. We will build that in an upcoming session, maybe next week if we don't have something already scheduled. Charles is the keeper of all the sessions, so I will confirm with him. But yeah, if you guys haven't already, please jump over, use all of this to help you understand where you're ranking on AI, understand what AI is saying about you. We will give this, we will give all of these files away, everything that we created today, as well as that full folder structure. So you guys can, you know, use this, build your own, improve on it. If you make modifications and you do evolve it, please let me know. I would love to see. And always feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I respond to all of my messages, and I am always here to answer specific questions to you. And then if you have any questions and you want to see anything in upcoming sessions, please let me know. I will always try to integrate them when I can. Thank you guys so much. This is a really great session. Thank you for joining if you've been here before. If you're new, I hope to see you in future sessions. I hope everyone has a good rest of their day. Thank you. Bye.